Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to share my chili recipe with you all. This recipe is so easy and so yummy, so let's get right into it. So the first step is to cook your ground beef. My ground beef comes in these packages and I don't know how many pounds this is, but I typically use half of this for my chili recipe. And the awesome thing about chili is that you can use as much or as little of these ingredients as you want. So you can put as much beef in it as you want, or you don't even have to put beef in it at all if you want to make this a vegan chili. Okay, so I've put the ground beef into the pan with a little bit of water in the bottom, and I'm going to turn that on high, and while that starts cooking, we're going to go chop up an onion. Okay, so now we're going to chop up a yellow onion. I've got a half of an onion here. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the whole thing. I'm just going to start chopping it up and see how much it is once I get it all diced up. I like to chop my onions up really fine. I mean, you could just leave them big, thick chunks, but we don't like to have big, thick chunks of onion in our chili. We just like it to be real fine. So I'm just gonna dice this all up real fine. And my beef just started boiling, so I have to go turn down the heat a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna continue chopping. Okay, so I'd say that's probably chopped up fine enough, and that, well, there still is a little bit left on there, but I used about almost a half an onion. It wasn't quite. And now we are going to go dump this in with our ground beef. Okay, so now I'm going to add all of these onions in with the ground beef. I like to saute my onions in with the beef just so that they get nice and soft. I don't like to have crunchy onions in my chili. Okay, so now we're going to stir all this in. So now I've gotten that all stirred in real well, and I'm just going to let that simmer for a while until the onions are soft and the beef is cooked. Now you could also use ground turkey for this recipe as well if you didn't want to use beef. I'm going to add in a bit of salt and some pepper. And then just a few dashes of garlic. You don't want too much. Just a couple of little dashes. So while our meat finishes cooking, we can go ahead and combine our other ingredients into the pot that you're going to put your chili in. I'm going to use my black kettle to cook my chili in. I like to use my black kettle because it brings back a lot of good memories for me. Growing up, my mom would always cook all of her soups in her black kettle, and this past year for Christmas, she finally got me my own black kettle, and so it's just special for me to cook all of my soups in it, and just brings back a lot of good memories when I was growing up and the food that my mom would cook us. Okay, so now it's time to open the cans. The different canned goods I'm going to be using in this chili is corn, black beans, tomato sauce, green chilies, diced tomatoes, dark red kidney beans, and I'm also going to be using pinto beans. I only had dry pinto beans, so I just stuck them in the crock pot overnight, and so they're all cooked now and they're ready to be added to my chili. Okay, that was a lot of cans to open up. Okay, so now I'm going to drain the juice off of the kidney beans and the corn. Those are the only two I'm going to drain the juice off, and then I'm going to rinse off these black beans, and then the rest I just pour them in just as is. So I've drained the water out of the corn and the kidney beans, and I have rinsed my black beans. Now I'm ready to combine everything into my pot. Okay, so our meat mixture is done cooking, so we can add that with everything else into our pot. So I've drained the grease off of the meat and onions, and I poured it into my pot, and now I'm going to start adding the rest of my ingredients. So first I'm going to dump in a whole can of diced tomatoes in tomato juice. You do not want to drain these because you want that tomato juice in there. So we're going to add that in there. I like to add 2 of these small cans of tomato sauce. This just makes your chili a little bit thick and just gives it a really good tomatoey flavor. So we're going to add 2 of these, our 8-ounce cans. and that can of diced tomatoes was a 14.5 ounce. Okay, so now we're going to add in a whole 15.25 ounce can of golden sweet corn. And then I'm going to add some kidney beans. Now, since I'm doing 3 different types of beans, I'm not going to put the whole can in of these. I'm just going to sort of guess at it and just kind of put about half the can in there. Like I said, this is the wondrous thing about chili. You can put as much of these ingredients in or as little of them as you want. You don't even have to put in kidney beans. You can just put in black beans or pinto beans. It's just totally up to you. You can make as much or as little as you want. And then I'm going to pour in about half of the black beans. Now I am adding in my pinto beans that I had cooking in the crock pot all night. You can also just buy canned pinto beans, but like I said, I just had dry, so I just stuck them in the crock pot. And I just sort of guess at it. You can add more beans as it's cooking, but I'm just going to put about 3 scoops of this in here. And lastly, I'm going to add my green chilies. These are chopped fire roasted green chilies. This is a 4-ounce container. Okay, so I've got 2 cups of water here, and I'm just going to start adding it and see how it looks. Okay, so I've got a little bit of water left in there. I'm going to keep that handy because I'm going to let this simmer for a while and some of the water may cook out, so I may need to add more water later. Okay, now we're ready to mix all of this up together. So now I've got all of that stirred up, and now I've got my stove on, and we're going to get that started cooking. Now, as far as seasonings go, I like to start off by adding a bit of chili powder, and you just season this to taste. You add, I just sprinkle about just a good little covering on top of chili powder, and then I'm going to add in just a bit of salt and a few dashes of pepper. And now we're going to let that cook for a little while, and you can taste it in a little bit and see if it needs a bit more chili powder, or it just depends on how spicy you like your chili. And this is looking like it could use the rest of that water. So I'm going to add in the rest of the water in that container here, because I know that after it simmers for a while it is going to lose some of its juice. So now what I like to do is once this starts boiling, I've got it on high right now and I'm waiting for it to boil, but once it starts boiling, then I'll turn it down to about, just so that it's simmering, not on low, but maybe like at 2 or 3, just to where it's simmering on the stove. And then you can put the lid on it and just let it cook for like at least an hour. The longer you let it cook, I think the more flavor that it has. And it tastes even better if you would put it in like the crock pot and leave it on low for a couple hours and just let it simmer. Okay, so now that this has started boiling, we are going to turn the heat down. I'm going to turn it down to about a 3. And then I'm going to put the lid on it. And I'm just going to let this simmer for at least an hour. It just gives it such good flavor. If you don't have time to let it simmer for an hour, it tastes amazing right now and you could just go ahead and eat it. But I just love the extra flavor that it gives if you just let it simmer for a while. So we're just going to leave this go for about an hour. And while this is simmering, I'm going to clean up my mess. Okay, so now the chili has been simmering for a while and it is looking so yummy. And this may seem like a lot of chili. I made a whole pot full and we're just a family of 3. But what I like to do when I make soups is make extra. That way I can freeze whatever is left over. And then if you don't feel like cooking one day, you can just pull your soup out of your freezer and you have an easy meal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I also hope that you try this chili recipe. It's so yummy. We love to put tortilla chips and cheese and sour cream in ours, and today was a rainy, cloudy day, so it was the perfect day for chili. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.